back to another episode of the Life's Playbook podcast. It's episode 11 of the show, and it is now 4 days past 1 month. So, with that being said, today is if you're a huge basketball fan, I am a moderate basketball fan. I prefer football over basketball, but I keep up with the NBA, and I occasionally watch the NBA from time to time. But it is no secret that one of the greatest stars in not only basketball history, but in sports history, one of the greatest stars in Kobe Bryant has passed away on this very day. Today marks another year, another anniversary of the great legend Kobe Bryant's death. Kobe was a 5-time NBA champion, set lots of records, was very loved by many of us included, and he will always be remembered in the NBA world, and he will always be remembered in the sports world in general. So, today marks another year passing of a GOAT, of a legend in Kobe Bryant. So, with that being said, I figured today I devote this episode to not only Kobe Bryant, but to the sport Kobe Bryant played, and that is the NBA. I know a lot of the content as of late has been NFL and college related, college football related. And, there's many reasons why that is. There's a lot more news buzzing around the NFL and college football with Ohio State winning the national championship and all the hires and fires of GMs and coaches in the NFL. There's been a lot more to talk about in the NFL, but today is Kobe's day. So I figured I'd devote this episode to talk about the NBA. And the podcast is a football and basketball podcast, not just football. So, let's get into today's episode of some NBA content. Let's get into some standings and where some of these teams are at and how I think each team is going to finish and maybe certain team situations. So, with that being said, let's get into episode 11 of the Life's Playbook podcast. And, as always, the game never ends here. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. You are a legend, as well as your daughter Gigi Bryant, who also passed with Kobe in a fatal helicopter accident. So, let's get into today's episode, starting with some NBA standings of the 24-25 NBA season. So, the Eastern Conference standings are as followed, 1 through 10. I'm only going to go 1 through 10, because those are really the only ranks that really matter as of late. Of course, you have to be top 9 to make a play-in, to have a play-in spot, and you have to be, at least top 5 to clinch. So, let's get into the Eastern Conference. Let's look into the standings. My Cleveland Cavaliers hold the number 1 spot. I think it's rightfully so. They are 36-9. They just lost yesterday to the Houston Rockets, 135-131. Very close game. My Cleveland Cavs are rightfully so at the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Phenomenal Cavs team. Loved watching them. I even went to couple of their games this year in person. A very good Cavs team. I'm excited to see where they go in the playoffs and how far they make it. Boston Celtics hold the 2 seed at 32-14. Very good Boston Celtics team. Again, they're up there with the Cavs. The Cavs did beat them twice, I believe. No, I think they're 1-1 in the series right now. Cleveland beat them, and Boston beat Cleveland. So, very good Boston team. They are rightfully at the 2 seed, 32-14. Just not as good as the Cavs record-wise as of right now. New York Knicks, they are 30-16. They are rolling. Karl Anthony Towns is playing like an MVP, and I gotta say, the New York Knicks, rightfully so, 30-16. They hold the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. Rolling team, I gotta say, I'm excited to watch the Knicks. I'm ecstatic. Every time I watch the Knicks, it's always something good. Jalen Brunson is playing lights out. He actually is an all-star in this year's all-star weekend. Karl Anthony Towns, again, he's playing like an MVP. He should be in that MVP conversation for this year. I don't think there should really be any ifs, ands, or buts about it. But Karl Anthony Towns is phenomenal. He's got the boys rolling with Jalen Brunson. They are the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference, 30-16. Milwaukee is 4th. They actually had a very bad start to the season this year. Giannis was not happy. They fired their previous head coach in exchange for Doc Rivers. And at the start of the season, it actually didn't look that good for Milwaukee. But they found a way to flip things around. Giannis is happy again. The team is scoring points. The defense is showing up. Milwaukee is the 4th seed. They are 25-18 as of right now. Again, these standings have been updated as of yesterday, so this is the most recent these standings come. Indiana is 25-20. Decent team, top 5. They hold the 5 seed. Detroit. The Detroit Pistons are the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference in the NBA. I never thought I would say that, but they are top 10. I'm sure we all know that last season the Pistons were the worst team probably of that season, if not the worst team in the Eastern Conference. It is no secret that the Pistons have come a long way. Cade Cunningham was, in my opinion, snubbed of an all-star starting spot of being in this year's All-Star week. I think he was snubbed an All-Star, but that's a discussion for a later day. But he's really turned that team around, man. I got to hand it to you. The Pistons, they've come a long way from that terrible season last year, I'll tell you that. And they are the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference as of right now with a record of 23-22. The 7th seed, the Orlando Magic. Magic, great team, great young team. They are 24-23. Miami, despite all the controversy that's going on with Jimmy Butler has still not gotten a trade offer yet. He's still trying to chase a bag that he believes he rightfully deserves at his age. Despite all the controversy, though, the team is still in decent shape. They are even Steven right now at 22-22. They are the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference, followed by the 9th seed Atlanta Falcons. They're only a game behind Miami. They are 22-23. Trae Young, again, owner of the Knicks. Sorry, Knicks fans, but Trae Young is your proud owner. But him and the Hawks currently hold the 9th seed in the Eastern Conference, 22-23. And to cap out the top 10, the Chicago Bulls are 19-27. Technically, if they get on a big winning streak, the Chicago Bulls could be in this thing. They could be within top 9, top 6 through 9 range and make a play-in. But as of right now, the top 3 teams in the play-on right now are Atlanta, Miami, and Orlando. It is a tight window for the Bulls to try to sneak in as of right now and to get a playoff berth, much less a play-in berth. So, Chicago, you got a lot of work to do. But that is your top 10 Eastern Conference standings. The Cavs, number 1, rightfully so. Boston, number 2, rightfully so. New York, number 3, rightfully so. Milwaukee, number 4. They're coming back strong. They had a very rough start to the season. They came back strong. They're number 4. Indiana, number 5. Detroit, 6. Orlando, 7. Miami, 8. Atlanta, 9. And Chicago, 10. That division, that conference, the Eastern Conference, is rolling right now. Not as competitive as the Western Conference. Speaking of the Western Conference, let's take a look at the standings in the Western Conference as of right now. Again, these standings are all as updated and as recent as of yesterday. Western Conference, number 1, OKC. They are 36-8. They are pretty much tied with the Cavs in terms of record. They're 36-8. The Cavs are 36-9. They're pretty much neck and neck as of right now in terms of record. Good young team. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, in my opinion, is an MVP caliber player. He's an MVP candidate for sure, and he's an MVP finalist. I think he might win MVP. I think this might be SGA's year. Phenomenal player. Even despite without Chet Holmgren and a couple other valuable pieces, the Oklahoma City Thunder are still they're a young team. They can fight hard. They're rightfully the 1 seed in the Western Conference. The 2 seed is actually a surprising team. The Houston Rockets, as of right now, are the 2 seed. They are 30-14. Another great young team led by Jalen Green. Great team, young team. Surprising team to see up on here is the Houston Rockets, but they are the 2 seed at 30-14. Memphis Grizzlies are 31-15. Ja Morant rolling. He hasn't gotten himself banned for anything stupid, and that's all the Memphis Grizzlies need to retain that 3 seed is Ja Morant playing lights out. Nikola Jokic, Russell Westbrook, Jamal Murray, and the Denver Nuggets are 4th at 28-17. In my opinion, a little bit disappointing. I thought they were going to at least be higher than the Rockets, but the team's been struggling as of late. Russ has been balling out, I will say that. Russ has looked good on the past couple of teams that he's been on. It's great seeing Russell Westbrook, smiling again and being happy playing basketball again because, we all remember his run with the Lakers. We thought he was washed and we thought he was done, but he's really come in for this Denver Nuggets team. He's starting. He's in the starting lineup, and he's really come in for this Denver Nuggets team, and he's been that veteran presence, and he's really balled out lately on the Denver Nuggets. This could be his chance. This is arguably his best chance to win a ring with the Denver Nuggets. Jamal Murray, he's got to step it up though. He's kind of disappeared as a all-star talent. He's got to come back and find out who he is again and help the Denver Nuggets a little more. But they're the fourth seed. Got to give them credit where it's due. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the LA Lakers are the fifth seed. They are 25-18. That team has had a lot of struggles. I know the record doesn't do them justice, but there have been some talks going on inside that organization, and there have been rumors in that organization that team needs help. They need another big, quoted by Anthony Davis. So there's that's the LA Lakers in and of themselves is an episode for another day, but I know the record doesn't really show that the team is struggling, but there are some problems on that Lakers squad, but they are 25-18. They are in the mix. They are top 5. Number 6 is their neighbor down the street, the LA Clippers, James Harden and crew. They are almost neck and neck with the Lakers. They are 26-19. Again, James Harden, regular season warrior, but he just can't win big games when it matters. Not a notch against him. I think he'll be a Hall of Famer by the end of his career, but he's got those boys rolling. 26-19. They are the 6th seed. 7th seed, another young team. This team traded Karl-Anthony Towns to the New York Knicks, and I thought this team would do significantly worse than how they did last year. And they have regressed a little bit since losing Karl-Anthony Towns. They've lost that defensive presence that he brought. But they are the 7th seed in the Minnesota Vikings. They are 24-21. Again, that big trade in the offseason, they got rid of Karl-Anthony Towns. A lot of us thought they weren't going to be as good, but I'd say the 7th seed is pretty good despite losing a big defensive presence in Karl-Anthony Towns, and Julius Randle is kind of an off and on type of player, but I think the 7th seed is generous for the Minnesota Vikings given their situation. Anthony Edwards, great, phenomenal young dude. I think he's leading their franchise right now in 3-point attempts, 3 points made, 3-point shots taken. Oh, he's still rolling. I know 24-21 isn't as good as like 30-14 or 36-8. But they're still rolling. They got a play-in spot for sure. I think they will make the playoffs by the end of the season. Number 8 is the Phoenix Suns. That team is struggling. They are 23-21. I got to tell you, nobody's afraid of the Phoenix Suns. I mean, that team is struggling. They have a play-in spot as of right now with the record of 23-21, but they really got to find some sort of missing. They got to find that missing link that the team needs. They need a veteran presence. I think that's where Jimmy Butler can step in and go to a team like the Phoenix Suns and really elevate that team in terms of veteran presence and playoff experience. I think he could be that missing piece that the Phoenix Suns are missing. But they are struggling as of right now. They are at 23-21. There are some guys that really need to step up, but I think a spot like the Phoenix Suns is Jimmy's best hope to get traded to. I don't know if they're going to pay him the big bag that he wants, but Miami should be picking up the phone on the Suns should be picking up the phone on Jimmy Butler and asking if he's available. But they are the 8th seed, 23-21. I think they could squeak into the playoffs. They have a play-in spot as of right now. But I don't think they're going to get very far if they do make the playoffs. They got some problems that they got to sort out. Number 9 is the Dallas Mavericks, led by Kyrie, Klay, and Luka. Now, given those all-stars, you'd think the team would be better than 24-22. There have been some struggles. There have been some injuries. But the team, they have a play-in spot. I think they could make the playoffs. I think the season is there's still a lot of basketball left to be played. It is still fairly somewhat middle of the season, fairly young season still. So there's still a lot of basketball to be played. But it is no secret that some of the teams in the West have problems, and some of the teams in the East have problems that need to be sorted out. I know some of the records don't really do these teams justice, like the Lakers being 25-18, but they've got problems. The Lakers do have problems that they need to figure out, as do the Mavericks. They are the ninth seed, 24-22. And to cap off the top 10 in the Western Conference, the Sacramento Kings are the 10th seed, 23-22. That team is, they're doing all right. They are neck and neck right now with the San Antonio Spurs and the Golden State Warriors. The Western Conference is a lot tighter than the Eastern Conference. There are a lot of good teams. It's a very competitive conference, much more competitive than the Eastern Conference, I'll say that. So it's a lot tighter. It's going to be a lot tighter of a window for, San Antonio and Golden State to try to get a play-in spot, because there are a lot of good teams. This might be, who knows? This could be Steph Curry's last year in the league. Who knows? He hasn't really, he's still put up good numbers, not MVP level numbers anymore, but what do you expect from a guy who's in his late 30s, pushing 40s at this point? And, the Spurs, they're a young team. Chris Paul is really the only veteran presence that they have on that team. Can Victor Wembanyama carry that team? Again, there's still a lot of basketball left to be played. I think these rankings, unlike the NFL, NBA rankings can drastically shift within a few days, and there's a lot of basketball to be played. The season is still somewhat young still. I think some of these teams on here can make big leaps, get on big win streaks, and make a play-in spot or make playoffs. So there's still hope for, Steph Curry and the Warriors and Wembanyama and the Spurs to make a run. But I am saying that the Western Conference is a lot tighter than the Eastern Conference, and the windows for certain spots and positions are a lot more competitive and tighter than in the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference isn't as competitive. You can clearly see by looking at these rankings that there are, clear gaps in between teams. Again, if you're Chicago, it's a very tight window to even try to fight for that ninth spot, the ninth seed or the eighth seed. How well Miami and Atlanta is doing, but just overall, it shows you the competitive nature and the competitive gap between both the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. But your top 10 in the Western Conference are as follows: OKC number 1, Houston number 2, Memphis number 3, Denver number 4, LA Lakers number 5, the LA Clippers number 6, 7 Minnesota, 8 Phoenix Suns, 9 Dallas Mavericks, and 10 Sacramento Kings. Those are your top 10 in the Western Conference. Again, 11 and 12. Golden State is 11 and San Antonio is 12. And those two teams both still have a shot. The playoff window hasn't closed yet for those two teams, Golden State and San Antonio, but it's definitely going to be a lot more competition to try to get in. Now, with that being said, I said that certain teams, despite how their records look, there are some problems with certain teams. The Lakers are 25-18, but there are problems on that roster that need to be fixed and that need to be addressed. And again, the Heat, I know they're 22-22 despite the controversy, but it's no secret that the Jimmy Butler controversy is still a thing. That controversy is still alive, and it is still a thing. In fact, Jimmy Butler actually got suspended 2 more games because of it, for being late to work, per se. So it's not looking good. So with that being said, let's talk about these two teams, the LA Lakers and the Miami Heat, as well as, again, Jimmy Butler's future, because here we are talking about it again, and what I think on Jimmy Butler. Again, Jimmy Butler, let's start with Jimmy Butler first. He's my favorite NBA player, one of my favorite NBA players. I love the brother. I love to see him succeed in the league. I love watching him. I love watching his playoff runs, because Miami, they're just like, the Cincinnati Bengals. When they get in the playoffs, they can make a deep run despite how the regular season went. It's already been proven. But here we are again, talking about the same situation in Jimmy Butler. He got suspended 7 games. He came back, played, I believe, a couple games, and then got suspended again. Showed up late to his job. That is practice and playing basketball. It is no secret that this man does not like Miami whatsoever. It is no secret that this man wants to get out. The problem with his situation is that he's an aging NBA. It's not the NFL. Age does not help in the NBA. Your age determines your stock, your market. It's not the NFL where the older you are, then the more experience you have, the more teams are likely to pick you up. Because the NBA doesn't really, I mean, at least compared to the NFL, the NBA doesn't exactly value as your experience as much as the NFL does, at least from what I've seen. Your age and the NBA dictates your market, as opposed to the NFL. Your age and your experience dictate your market. If you still have a little bit of gas left in the tank in the NFL and you bring that veteran presence to a team and you still have, again, gas left in the tank, you're going to have not a huge market like you would have if you were younger, but you're still going to get teams that are going to want to pick you up, that are going to want you on your team. Bobby Wagner is a prime example of that. That man is way out of his prime. But the Commanders still picked him up. You know why? Because he still has fuel left in the tank. He has experience, and he's shown that experience. And defensively, for the Commanders, he's the leader of that defense. He's shown that experience. Jimmy Butler, in the NBA, it's not the same. He's an aging NBA player. The older you get in the NBA, your market starts to decrease and decrease and decrease. You're not going to get a huge bag in the NBA the older you get. If you're somebody of high status in the NBA and you've got accolades and championships like LeBron James, sure, a team is going to still try to pull for you. They're still going to try to trade for you. They're still going to try to, make a decently big offer for you. Again, taking into account that LeBron James is 40 years old, I don't think he expects to get like $100 million contract still at his age. Jimmy Butler, you can't be asking for that type of contract given your age. Now, I understand there are things that he brings to the table. I mean, again, I said in my first Tuesday talk that he brings leadership, he brings toughness, he's a culture changer, and all those things matter in the NBA, and all those things matter for teams. But in the case of Jimmy Butler's situation, this controversy and all this drama is not really helping your stock. It's not really helping your market, and it's not really helping your face, Jimmy Butler. It's not helping what you are and who you are. If you really want a team to call for you, and I think the best shot he has is the Phoenix Suns, because the Phoenix Suns they are a team that's also struggling, and that's also in need of somebody who can set the tone and set a veteran presence. And Jimmy Butler is that guy. But if you want teams to call for you, you got to represent yourself well. You can't show up late to work and then expect a team to play you still and not suspend you, or expect a team to call for you. That's not how that works. This isn't the NFL. I can't stress the difference between age and experience and all these other things. Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Butler is one of my favorite NBA players. I love watching this guy. I love watching him in the playoffs. I love watching everything that he does. He's an all-star. He's made the all-star, many times. He's got individual accolades. He doesn't have a lot of them, but he's got individual accolades. He doesn't have championships. He doesn't have any of that other stuff, which also factors in as to why it's taking as long as it is and why this drama is still around, because Jimmy Butler doesn't really have anything that stands out about him. He doesn't really have something that defines his career. He doesn't really have, he's got no championships. He doesn't have any of that. He's made all NBA a couple times. He's been an all-star a couple times, and that's all fine and dandy, but pretty much any and every team has, an all-star caliber player on their team. Pretty much any team in the NBA has an all-star caliber player on that team. Even the Washington Wizards, they got an all-star caliber player on that team. The Charlotte Hornets, second worst team in the league, 12 and 30. 12 and 30. LaMelo Ball, he's an all-star talent. The Pistons, they were terrible last season. This season, they're the 6th seed. Cade Cunningham is an all-star talent. Every team has their all-star. So it's not like, the fact that you've made multiple all-stars is going to help you, find a team that's going to trade for you. I can't stress this enough how you have to, it's vastly different. The NFL values your age and your experience much more than the NBA does. And that's why a lot of these older players in the NFL, it's slightly easier to find a trade. It's slightly easier to call for this guy and say, hey, I want this guy. I know he's out of his prime, but he brings leadership. He brings, playoff experience, and I think he's still got some gas left in the tank to be able to perform at an elite level. The NBA is not the same. The older you get, the more the more your market shrinks. Your market window shrinks the older you get in the NBA. Unless you're of a guy like LeBron James who's got all these trophies and all these accolades and can still, provide something to the team, not too many teams are going to pick up on you. Not too many teams are going to call the Heat and be like, well, we want Jimmy Butler because he brings this, this, and this, and he has this, this, and this. It's not exactly the same as the NFL. Now, that's not a knock to the NBA at all, because the NBA can still be exciting to watch at times, but it's not the same. The values are not the same. The markets are not the same between both sports, and this Jimmy Butler situation is really showing that they're not the same. Now, I said earlier that the Phoenix Suns would be my best, landing spot for Jimmy Butler, and he's teased that multiple times. I think one game he wore a pair of Phoenix Suns themed shoes on the court, and so it's clear that the Suns are his hotspot right now to go to if he ever gets a call. The Phoenix Suns is where he wants to go. I think that's the right hotspot. That's the right call for him, because the Phoenix Suns, they're missing a guy that can provide leadership, that can provide a culture, that can provide toughness, that has playoff experience, that can lead a team to the playoffs. Jimmy Butler can do all of those things. He can provide all of those things. And the Phoenix Suns, again, they sit at the 8th seed right now. They're 23-21. Look at the Phoenix Suns situation as of right now. This has been the narrative all season long for the Phoenix Suns. And again, there's still a lot of basketball left to be played, but the narrative around the Phoenix Suns as of right now is nobody fears this team. This team's not tough. This team doesn't scare anybody. They play no defense. Their offense is struggling. If you're the Phoenix Suns and you see that situation with Jimmy Butler, you should be picking up the phone. If you're the Phoenix Suns, you should be picking up the phone right now for Jimmy Butler, and you should be calling for a negotiation for Jimmy Butler. I think it's the right fit for Jimmy Butler. I think it's really the only fit that he's going to get. So that's, here we are, weeks later, talking about the same situation. But I got to tell you, Jimmy Butler, the more this controversy goes on, the more this getting suspended and whatnot, and the more all this showing up late to work, the more all this controversy goes on, the less your market is, the tighter your window to get traded is going to get. You got to put out a good front. That's my message. You got to put out a good front. If you want to get traded, and you also got to face facts too. You're not going to get paid, big bucks anymore. You're arguably not in your prime anymore. You're not going to get paid the big bucks, so you shouldn't expect to get paid the big bucks. You got to face that reality. And until you face those two realities, Jimmy Butler, you can watch my previous Tuesday talk. It is still up, and you can watch my original view on this controversy. But I think it's ridiculous now that here we are again talking about the same situation with the same guy, and the same guy's getting suspended. He's already been suspended a grand total of 9 games. To my knowledge, he got suspended 7 games, and he got suspended 2 games for the same thing. So all I'm saying is this. 2 things. If you're the Phoenix Suns, you see what's going on with Miami, you should be picking up the phone right now for Jimmy Butler. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, if you're Jimmy Butler, you got to face the reality that you're not going to get the big bag that you want. At this stage in your career, you're just not going to get that. And you also got to face the fact that, your market, the more you keep doing this stuff, the more your market is going to decrease. You got to put on a good front. Got to put on a good look. Can't be missing practices and going on strikes and doing this stuff to an organization that I don't know what's going on. I don't know if there is a deeper, darker story. I don't know what that story is. I just know that here we are talking about the same situation, because this same situation has been going on for weeks now. But that's just, that's these things are going to play out, and maybe if there is something going on with Jimmy Butler and the Heat organization that hasn't been brought to light, maybe that will get brought to light. But that's just my thing. That's my new updated take on the situation. Let's talk about the Lakers, because the Lakers, again, they are they're top five as of right now. They're 25-18, you know, and they got guys rolling. But it is no secret that that team is struggling roster wise. The record again doesn't really show, it doesn't really do them justice. 25-18 is pretty good, and it's top five pretty good. So it kind of masks all of the struggles that's going on roster wise with the team. This team, they're in need of something. Just like the Phoenix Suns, they're in need of a missing piece. There's something, at least according to Braun and AD, there's something missing with this team. And I've watched many clips now of AD talking about, Anthony Davis, talking about that they need another big. I wouldn't be opposed to that because Anthony Davis is playing the 5 spot right now. And I think he should really be playing the 4 spot because that's where he feels most comfortable. And LeBron, I saw the quote where he said, he basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, the team basically needs more help. The team needs more help. Now, I'm not opposed to this idea that the team needs help, but at the same time, you got guys, you got some sort of depth. You got team players in Austin Reeves and Bronny. You got guys, and I know Bronny. He's kind of an on and off dude with the G League and whatnot, but he can come in and give you some minutes. Now Austin Reeves can give you minutes. Austin Reeves is good. It doesn't get any. Your bench isn't going to get any better than Austin Reeves. You got rid of D'Angelo Russell, and he was an off and on guy too. I'm not saying he was the answer, because he was an off and on NBA player too. But you got guys, you got pieces that can come in a game and give you minutes, give you some looks. I just think that the fact that Braun at his age, and with all of the success that he's had, all of the accolades that he has, and AD too, 2 superstars. Granted, one of them is not in their prime anymore, and one of them's kind of not in their prime anymore too. I just think it's kind of ridiculous that they're saying that they need something else. They need more. You have more. You got guys. You have stars. You just gotta give those guys more minutes. You gotta let those guys. Again, Austin Reeves he's a good player. He's a good player. And I think he'll be an all-star talent one of these days. I think he could definitely be an all-star talent one of these days. One of these years. He's still young in his career. But, I think it's ridiculous that LeBron, is saying this. Again, I'm not opposed to the idea that maybe they could bring in another big. Dwight Howard has been out of the league for months, years. Go out and get Dwight Howard if you think that's the problem with the Lakers. Go out and get him if he's going to solve some issues. I don't know, pick up the phone on Jimmy Butler, maybe. Pick up the phone on him. See if you can, negotiate a trade for him. I don't know. But I just think it's kind of ridiculous that LeBron, given the guy that he is, I think he's too good for that. He's too good to be asking for more help when they have guys that can come in a game and give you good minutes. And they can put on good performances. I don't know. I just think that the Lakers situation, it's understandable because maybe, who knows, and I could be wrong. Again, I don't keep up with the NBA nearly as much as I do with like college football and the NFL. And that's, hence the reasoning why a majority of the content out now is all football related. But I could be wrong. Maybe getting another big is the answer to the Lakers, roster problem. Because as a team, 25-18, that doesn't look terrible. It shows that something's going on, something's right. But, that roster, the depth, I think is really the problem with the Lakers. And I think if they make the playoffs, that might be the problem that they face in the playoffs. But, I don't know. I just think LeBron is too good for that. LeBron and AD are way too good to be asking for help, to be asking for more help. Especially when you do have guys that can come in and give you a solid game. They can come in and give you a solid game. But, I don't know. there's the NBA and the NFL are very different. I've said it again about, the difference in marketing and the difference in players' age and experience, and how, the NFL values experience and age a little more than the NBA. If Aaron Rodgers was in the NBA and he was, in the exact same situation that Jimmy Butler is in, and he was asking for, all this big money to get traded out of an organization that he doesn't like, do you think a team looking at a 40-year-old man who's got one NBA championship do you think they're gonna pay him big bucks to come to the team and see if he can try to be the golden boy to fix the situation? Probably not. He stands no chance, a 40-year-old man, with those accomplishments and those accolades. He stands no chance. He'll somewhat of a bag. He'll still make some bread, but it's not going to be like $100 million. It's not going to be anything like that. That's the beauty of the NFL, as opposed to the NBA. You can still be in your 40s, for crying out loud. You can still be in your late 30s, early 30s, and you still bring value. There's still value left. The NBA doesn't really exactly value that the same way that the NFL does. And, I'm not saying it's a problem, and it's a reason as to why the NBA's ratings are down as opposed to the other three major sports in America, those three being NHL, NFL, and MLB. But, it's just showing an indifference between the two. That the NFL values experience and age a little more than the NBA does. And that's really what I take away from the Jimmy Butler situation, and that's kind of what I take away from the LA Lakers situation. And again, there are problems with other teams too, but the two hottest teams right now that have the two hottest problems right now are the LA Lakers and the Miami Heat. And I think, both those teams, again, I could be wrong because I don't keep up with the NBA as much as I do with the NFL and college football, but this is an NBA podcast nonetheless, as well as an NFL podcast and a college football podcast. So it's only right to, include the NBA every now and then. And plus, it is Kobe's day. This does mark another year of Kobe's passing. Rest in peace, he was a legend. But I thought it was only right to come on here and talk some NBA talk. So, with that being said, this has been episode 11 of the Life's Playbook podcast. Again, feel free to correct me if I made any mistakes in this video. Feel free to comment your take on the Jimmy Butler situation, the LA Lakers situation, because these are two hot teams, literally, Miami Heat and the LA Lakers. These are two hot teams out there right now that have visible problems. Certain players are unhappy, certain players think that the team needs more, but those are just the two biggest stories out there right now with the NBA that I've chose to cover. So, this has been episode 11 of the Life's Playbook podcast. I'll catch you guys possibly Tuesday, but I'll definitely catch you guys Thursday for episode 12. Episode 12 marks the final episode of the first season, if you will, of the show. So with that being said, I'll catch you guys Thursday for episode 12. Till then, peace out. The game never ends here. The Life's Playbook podcast.